Let's get to the advisory now. And our next guest says, succession planning is vital for family businesses for a smooth transition in leadership, management and ownership across generations. For more insights, Dominic Pelligana is the partner at Lineage Group. And he joins us now. Dominic, good to see you.
Great to be here, thank you.
Succession planning. Arguably every family needs this. But in what form should it take? And I guess the question is of timing too.
Absolutely, great question. So the sooner you start, the better, particularly with large, complex operating businesses. And what we typically encourage families to do is look at the life cycle of an industry and how attractive, or is it still attractive? And then look at the life cycle of the business and where is that? And then the family needs to be aligned what they want for and from the business, and that's the beginning of the strategic planning for the family's continued involvement in that industry and with that business.
Are you just talking about family offices, or this applies much more broadly?
Great question. So both for operating businesses, so we talk about business families that might be generational, have one or more businesses, but also family offices, which are typically mini advisory firms families set up to look after their investments. So similar themes, but two separate types of businesses.
What are some of the most common mistakes you've seen made?
Yeah, great. A lack of communication. So often the critical part is to be aligned on what the plan is for the business and the relationship the family wants to have with the business. But to do that, you need to be explicit and have that conversation and be clear on what the family wants for and from. And once you do that, it's easy to get alignment. So the biggest problem is there isn't an explicit conversation around the direction of the business or the office and the relationship the family wants to have.
But as we well know, it's rare that all members of a family will agree, particularly on a direction of a business that's at stake when money's involved. How do you resolve that?
So it's critical you get an independent person. So this is like dentistry, you can't do it to yourself. So the fact that an independent person is not that close to the conversation and doesn't have that vested interest or that perceived conflict. So a lot of families try to do it themselves, but it's critical they get an independent person who's experienced that can facilitate and prompt with the right questions and experience.
Well, hopefully it's not as potentially painful as dentistry as well. What then do you need to consider, particularly as far as management is concerned? It's not just about necessarily the finances, but it's the control of the business.
Absolutely. So it's critical that we have the right leadership. So people typically dive to the ownership of a business when they're thinking about succession, but what's critically important, we have a plan for the business, a plan for the leadership of the business, then a plan for the ownership. So it's critical that we understand what the business needs and what sort of leader it needs. That'll inform who manages it, and it doesn't have to be the family. The family can be owners, they can be owners and directors, or owners, directors and managers. They have lots of options, but that strategic direction and leadership capability to make sure the business is sustained and can compete and grow is critical.
And perhaps when you have a patriarch or a matriarch who have been in control and they die, I would imagine then you need some sort of trigger mechanism where that succession takes place.
Yeah, it's some horrible examples of where the patriarch or matriarch dies without a plan and without a financial power of attorney, so you can't even operate the business. So it's critical as part of strategic planning, but also estate planning, that we're clear that some of those financial powers are delegated so the business can operate. We strongly encourage these businesses to have independent advisors, so if something does happen, that the business continues.
What about perhaps a little more complex business that might be a family business, but there are third parties involved, so it might be family controlled, but there are external interests as well?
Yeah, in terms of external directors, and absolutely. So typically external directors and non-family CEOs need to know what the plan is and the family's commitment and ongoing commitment to the business. So with our client base, we actually look for independent directors and non-family CEOs because they suit the needs of the business, but that's got to be part of their incentive and what their mandate is. A lot of these external people want to know what their job is and what their delegations are. So it's critical that that's clear so we can attract the best talent so the business can keep growing.
Dominic, just before you came on, I was talking about the Murdochs, and we know that they've been in court at the moment trying to resolve exactly this issue. And as you point out, we may never know exactly what transpires, but what sort of an example does that set in that such a huge business, but very much family control?
Yeah. We talk a lot about what's normal and predictable through generations. And a strong founder or refounder of a business typically keeps their cards close to their chest. So this is normal in terms of keeping that close, but not documenting a lot of things. So what typically happens is the founder hangs on for too long and doesn't put those plans in place, or has plans and changes them. So this case that's playing out to us is very typical of a strong founder or refounder.
Well, and this may also be used as a case too, where you have that strong founder anointing one particular member of the family.
And perhaps changing their mind.
Well, indeed, but obviously annoying the rest of the family at the same time. So, I mean, how do you overcome those family issues where perhaps in Tennessee it's, you've got the rift within families?
It's always a challenge. It makes it easier if we're clear on what we want for and from the business and who the best person is. But for the family to realise they can be owners and they can be directors, they don't have to be the leaders day to day. And in fact, one of our clients is encouraging his two sons not to worry about being CEO, because he says, you're owners, why take a demotion? So it's really lifting their perspective and being clear on the different roles that they can play.
And perhaps maybe using a farm as an example, perhaps the children don't want control. What do you do in that situation?
Well, there's lots of examples where the next generation don't want to go into the family business because they're not attracted to the industry or they're not attracted to the business. So then we're very clear on what role does the business play to the family. And often first generation, the family is there to serve the business. Second generation beyond, the business is there to serve the family. So it's really working out what do they want for that asset. And farming is particularly difficult and expensive.